A very warm good morning to all of you. It's a beautiful morning and we're back once again with a fresh edition of Breakfast News. I'm Preeti, with me is Rukma. And in the next 1 hour, we'll get you to everything that's making it to the headlines. We'll get you national and international updates. We'll get you updates from the world of business and sports as well. A web review as well. Enough to keep you occupied with us for the next 1 hour. Where we talk of this morning, let's begin this morning on this beautiful thought which is said by Jonas Salk. He says, hope lies in the dreams, in imagination and in the courage of those who dare to make dreams into reality. So remember, it is your thought process. It is inside your brains that the optimism, the positivity and the courage and the desire to do something that stays on with you for the day and also in all your endeavors as well, isn't it?
Right. Very truly said, Preeti, and that thought... with that thought, let's begin. As Preeti was mentioning, it's an action-packed news hour ahead here on the Breakfast News. As we follow the Prime Minister, he lays the foundation stone of Maharaja Suhail Dev Memorial and development work of Chittora Lake. He'll also be addressing a webinar on infrastructure development. All that and more, major developments on the COVID vaccination front as well. But first, here are the headlines.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address a webinar for consultation on roadmap for effective implementation of budget in infrastructure sector. Over 200 panelists will share their ideas on improving pace and quality of infrastructure development.
FASTag mandatory from today to promote fee payment through digital mode, reduce waiting time and fuel consumption, and provide for seamless passage. Non-compliance will incur double the toll fee applicable.
WHO gives emergency use listing to 2 versions of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. For these vaccines to be rolled out globally through COVAX. The Covishield vaccine is also being made in India through the Serum Institute.
Former Nigerian Finance Minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala makes history, becomes first woman and first African Director General of World Trade Organization.
Dr. Ajay Mathur of TERI to be the Director General of the International Solar Alliance, a coalition of 73 member countries. The alliance was established to accelerate the demand for and use of safe, sustainable and affordable solar energy for all.
India in driver's seat in second test against England at Chepauk, chasing a mammoth victory target of 482 runs. The visitors lose 3 early wickets. Ashwin's 5th test century catapults India to a commanding lead.
And India celebrates the festival of Basant Panchami today. The festival marks the transition to the spring season. Saraswati Puja is also being celebrated on this day. So those were the headlines we're tracking this hour. Up next, we'll get to news in detail. We'll begin with the national headlines first.
And as we were telling you, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address a webinar for consultation on a roadmap for the effective implementation of the Union Budget 2021-22 in the infrastructure sector today. More than 200 panelists, including representatives of major financial institutions and funds, consultants and subject matter experts. The panelists will share their ideas on improving pace and quality of infrastructure development with focus on advanced technology and attracting more investments in the sector. This will be followed by 2 parallel breakout sessions involving discussions between senior officials of groups of ministries and cross-sectional experts to come up with a list of implementable projects. The aim is to fast-track implementation of the budget vision and draft an implementation roadmap.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay the foundation stone of Maharaja Suheldev Memorial and development work of Chittora Lake today through video conferencing. The event in Bahraich in Uttar Pradesh marks the birth anniversary of Maharaja Suheldev. Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh Yogi Adityanath will also be present on the occasion. The complete project will include installation of an equestrian statue of Maharaja Suheldev and development of various tourist amenities like cafeteria, guest house and a children's park. Maharaja Suheldev's devotion and service to the country is a source of inspiration for all, and with development of this memorial site, the country will be able to get better acquainted with the heroic saga of Maharaja Suheldev. It would also further enhance the tourist potential of this site. All right, to get us more on that, our correspondent Arun Sharma is joining us. Arun, two important programs lined up for the Prime Minister today. Let's begin with the Prime Minister laying the foundation stone of Maharaja Suheldev Memorial and development work of Chittora Lake through video conferencing today. To begin with, I would want you to acquaint our viewers with the heroic saga of Maharaja Suheldev.
Good morning, Preeti, Rukma and all our viewers. Well, indeed, today again, the history will meet with the generation next. That's what the idea of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is. Now, he is going to lay the foundation stone of this memorial of Maharaja Suheldev. Now, Maharaja Suheldev played an important role in protecting, the country, the land which he ruled in 11th century. We know this fact that the Ghaznavi's nephew, Saeed, Ghazi Saeed, he primarily was conquering each and every places at that time when, Maharaja Suheldev used to rule the place called Shravasti. Now, at that time, he was constantly attacking and conquering the entire land area, whereby the current region of today. So, primarily, the bravery and the valor, of Maharaja Suheldev, that played an important role, and he protected and primarily defeated the nephew of Ghaznavi. We know this fact that Ghaznavi was also involved at that time in destroying and destruction of various Hindu temples like Somnath as well. So various monuments and the Hindu temples at that time was destroyed by Ghaznavi, and the nephew of Ghaznavi's his ambitious plan to conquer this entire region, that was stopped by Maharaja Suheldev. And that's the reason people of today, till today, primarily take inspiration from Maharaja Suheldev as to how can his bravery and valor can inspire the youngsters of our country as to how can you protect your motherland, how can you sacrifice your life primarily, for the betterment of the motherland. So these are the inspiration that can be taken. So in past also we have seen that Prime Minister Narendra Modi ensures this fact that the great hero, the great personalities of past, how can the youngsters learn from them, number one. How can primarily these heroes should not be forgotten in the pages of history? So that's the idea, and that's the reason why Prime Minister Narendra Modi, will today be laying the foundation stone of this memorial of Maharaja Suheldev. Earlier also we have seen the dedication and commitment of the government. We know this fact that Amit Shah, when he was the BJP president earlier in 2016, at that time he unveiled the statue of Maharaja Suheldev. And primarily in 2018, we have seen how Prime Minister Narendra Modi, launched the commemorative stamp of Maharaja Suheldev. And also there is an express train, the Maharaja Suheldev Express train, that is also being running from Anand Vihar Terminal, Delhi. So government is ensuring that how can better amenities and better infrastructure can be created in the name of the great heroes of past, so that youngsters can learn more and more from them and can implement in their life. So number one, they are not forgotten in the pages of history. And number two, youngsters can learn from these great personalities of past, and today is indeed a significant day in that context.
All right, indeed, today is a significant day, Arun.
Right, and as you were pointing out, it's boosting the spirit of patriotism and nationalism along with development, because from now onwards, as the foundation stone is laid, it will also become a major tourist attraction and all facilities will be available for tourists. But moving on to the other item on the Prime Minister's agenda today, what can we expect when he takes on the subject of how the budget, on the roadmap ahead on the implementation of the budget as far as the infrastructure sector is concerned? Already the government during these months of the pandemic intensifying its focus and commitment to development of infrastructure. What more is there in store ahead?
Absolutely, Rukma. So when we talk about infrastructure, we know this fact that government understands this fact that if in case a double-digit growth has to be achieved, there is a need to spend more on infrastructure, be it the rural infrastructure or be it the urban infrastructure. If in case more is spent on infrastructure, if in case more infrastructure capacity building is taking place, so job creation will happen, and of course the country's GDP will also rise. So that's a basic idea. And today when Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses this webinar, whereby the experts from various sectors, the senior government officials will be talking to each other, will be doing manthan primarily with each other, coming up with ideas as to how can this infrastructure can be next generation in nature, number one. How can they be implemented in faster approach? Because we know this fact that budget has allocated a lot as far as this infrastructure sector is concerned. We know this fact that there is already 100 lakh crore of infrastructure or the national infrastructure pipeline in place, whereby the focus is specifically on the highways, primarily roads and highways, various energy projects. So there are a lot of projects involved in this national infrastructure pipeline. But how can these infrastructure projects be fast-tracked? That's the basic idea. And that's the reason why Prime Minister Narendra Modi is addressing the senior government officials of various ministries and departments primarily. And the experts of various sectors will also be implementing. So idea is that how can these experts and the senior government officials can, keep their ideas in front of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And second important aspect is that we also know this fact that Prime Minister Narendra Modi also holds a Pragati meeting on either on weekly basis or fortnightly basis. And in this Pragati meeting, Prime Minister Narendra Modi takes stock of the situation as to what is the progress of various infrastructure projects in the country. And more than 30 lakh crore of infra projects has been reviewed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in last six and a half years as far as infra projects are concerned. So idea is that there should not be any bottlenecks as far as implementing any projects. And of course, how can next generation infrastructure can be created? And of course, how can manthan or discussion can be held in that aspect. So in that context, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's interaction or address of this webinar of these experts group and of course the senior government officials is going to be very much important.
All right, Arun, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs on both the important assignments, important events that are to be attended by Prime Minister. We'll keep our viewers updated. Meanwhile, let's move on to other updates in the bulletin.
And the Delhi police yesterday identified the creators and the editors of the toolkit document, which has been linked to the violence that took place during the January 26th tractor rally. Delhi police investigation has revealed the involvement of Khalistani groups in creating the toolkit, which aims to create a Twitter storm and tarnish India's global image. Delhi police have also got in touch with Google, on whose platform the toolkit document was created, and has posed several questions to the tech giant. Here's more.
New facts are surfacing in the toolkit case linked to anti-India propaganda. Delhi police on Monday made some big revelations in the case. According to the police, in the aftermath of the violence during the tractor rally of 26 January, police had been closely monitoring social media activity. That is when the said Google toolkit document was traced. Further investigation showed how the toolkit exposed international conspiracy with links to pro-Khalistan organization. The agenda was to provoke unrest in India and tarnish the international image.
Initial investigation of this toolkit document revealed that it was created by a pro-Khalistani group named Poetic Justice Foundation and people associated with it. One portion of the toolkit document mentioned action points named prior action. As you are aware, they were digital strike through hashtag on 26 January. The second part of the same document mentions tasks such as disruption of India's cultural heritage such as yoga and tea, and targeting Indian embassies abroad in various capitals. The time-bound action points and program given in the toolkit, when viewed in the context of actual developments in Delhi, clearly showed that the action plan that was formulated in the toolkit was implemented on ground or executed in a copycat manner.
According to the police, Nikita Jacob and her friend Shantanu created the toolkit and then shared it with others. Disha Ravi helped in editing the content of this document. The three were in touch with Canada-based pro-Khalistan organization called Poetic Justice Foundation. A Zoom meeting was held among them ahead of the Republic Day violence.
During the investigation, many screenshots of the toolkit document available on open source were investigated. As soon the investigation was able to fetch enough information, a search warrant was obtained from the Honorable Court on 9th February 21 against one Nikita Jacob, one of the editors of the Toolkit Google document. On 11th January, Nikita and Shantanu attended a Zoom meeting organized by Poetic Justice Foundation in which the modalities of the Global Day of Action were worked out.
During investigation, police found 2 laptops and an iPhone from Nikita's residence containing sensitive documents. Incriminating material was also found at Disha's residence. Disha had also made a WhatsApp group to coordinate on the Toolkit initiative that she later deleted. Delhi police arrested Disha Ravi in the case on Saturday. A Delhi court sent her to 5 days police custody. Shantanu and Nikita are still absconding. Non-bailable warrant has been issued against the two. Nikita Jacob has approached the Bombay High Court for protection from arrest. While the police is continuing with the investigation and the matter is now in the court, initial revelations indicate how some foreign powers were part of organized misinformation campaign and propaganda against India. DD India.
And BJP spokesperson Sambit Patra has described the revelations as eye-opening. He asked for strict action to be taken against the alleged conspirators.
जिस प्रकार का खुलासा दिल्ली पुलिस ने अपने प्रेस वार्ता में किया है वो देश को चौंकाने वाला है। जिस टूल किट के विषय में पूरा देश सवाल उठा रहा था कि ये देश को तोड़ने वाला एक टूल किट था, उस टूल किट के षड्यंत्र को पूरी तरह से पर्दाफाश करके इस पीसी ने रखा है। और मुझे लगता है देश का कानून सर्वोपरि होता है। जो भी व्यक्ति देश को तोड़ने का प्रयत्न करे, कानून को उसका काम करना चाहिए, कानून को अपना काम बिल्कुल करना चाहिए। जो लोग उस पर विलाप करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, जो लोग अपनी राजनीतिक रोटी इस पर सेकने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, कहीं ना कहीं वो देश के साथ, देश की अखंडता और देश की संप्रभुता के साथ खिलवाड़ कर रहे हैं। दिल्ली पुलिस ने स्पष्ट रूप से कहा है, कुछ बैंड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, ऐसे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जिनको हिंदुस्तान की सरकार ने बैन कर रखा है, उनका इसके पीछे हाथ था और बिल्कुल ये उचित नहीं है।
And in the Toolkit case, as Delhi police intensifies the hunt for accused advocate Nikita Jacob has moved Bombay High Court for interim protection against police action. Her lawyer sought an urgent circulation and the High Court will hear the case today. A non-bailable warrant has already been issued against her, who the Delhi police has claimed is absconding. A Twitter storm was recently organized by a section of activists with the help of some foreign entertainers in the backdrop of the farmers' protest. In another important development, after Nikita Jacob, another accused, Shantanu Muluk, who is facing a non-bailable warrant, has also moved the Aurangabad bench of the Bombay High Court seeking transit anticipatory bail. Earlier, an NBW was issued against him by Delhi police in connection with the Greta Thunberg Toolkit case. The matter will also be heard today.
The death toll in the aftermath of the snow avalanche in Chamoli of Uttarakhand has gone up to 57. NDRF teams recovered 2 more bodies from Tapovan Hydel project tunnel this morning. As many as 147 people are still missing. Bodies of 29 people have been identified so far. Garhwal Divisional Commissioner Ravinath Raman today held a review meeting with District Magistrate Swati S. Bhadoria and other concerned officers to take an update on relief and rescue operations in the disaster-affected areas.
And 6 people, including 3 men and 2 females, a child, were killed in a road accident in Jammu and Kashmir. The accident occurred when a vehicle they were travelling in fell into a deep gorge in Doda district on Monday evening. According to official sources, the vehicle was on its way to Batote from Doda when it fell into a deep gorge at Ranginala. SSP Doda Mumtaz Ahmed has said that 6 bodies have been recovered so far. MOS in the Prime Minister's office, Dr. Jitendra Singh, who is a member of parliament from Kathua Udhampur Doda constituency, has offered to provide assistance to the victims of the road crash.
In India, all lanes in the Fee Plazas on country's national highways have been declared as FASTag lane of the Fee Plaza. FASTag has been made mandatory from today to promote fee payment through digital mode, reduce waiting time and fuel consumption, and provide for a seamless passage. Non-compliance will incur double the toll fee applicable. Therefore, as per the NH fee rules 2008, any vehicle not fitted with FASTag or a vehicle without valid functional FASTag entering into a FASTag lane of the fee plaza shall pay a fee equivalent to 2 times of the fee applicable to that category. The ministry had mandated fitment of FASTags in M&N categories of motor vehicles with effect from 1st January this year. Category M stands for a motor vehicle with at least 4 wheels used for carrying passengers, and Category N stands for a motor vehicle with at least 4 wheels used for carrying goods, which may also carry persons in addition to the goods.
Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General of TERI, has been elected as the Director General of the International Solar Alliance. As the Government of India's nominee for the position, he was elected unopposed by the 89-country Assembly of the ISA. Dr. Mathur replaces Mr. Upendra Tripathi, who has served as Director General since the ISA was founded in 2015.
Honored by the faith reposed in me by the Assembly of the International Solar Alliance to lead this alliance into the future. I am ambitious about what the alliance and its members can achieve together. I look forward to work with all the member countries in integrating solar applications into their country's own energy strategies and to welcoming new members, especially now that the Assembly has enabled universalization of membership to all the UN members. As we look to the future, I look forward to work together with all the members and partners and ensure that we move to a transition to safer and more sustainable and prosperous and equitable future through the use of solar energy.
Tejas Rajdhani special train began its maiden journey from Agartala, which was flagged off by Pratima Bhaumik, Lok Sabha MP of West Tripura, from Agartala railway station on Monday. We get to more in this report.
The present union government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi is making Northeast getting its lost glory in terms of rapid development of the region, which was ignored by the erstwhile governments in Delhi. The launch of Agartala Anand Vihar Terminal Special Rajdhani Express with Tejas sleeper coaches for the first time in India from Agartala is one such example that development of the Northeast is the highest priority for the present union government.
इंडिया का न्यू इंजन बनने जा रहा है, उसके लिए जो लागत लगाना है, जिसके लिए पूंजी निवेश करना है, मोदी जी वो कर रहा है, और रिटर्न नॉर्थ ईस्ट से आराम से मिलेगा.
This will be the first train on the Tejas rake to be run on the Northeast Frontier Railways. Provided with smart features, the coaches of this new sleeper type Tejas train will offer 1 AC first class, 3 AC 2-tier, 11 AC 3-tier, 1 AC hot buffet car coaches apart from 2 generator cum luggage vans for booking of parcels.
ये जो स्लीपर टाइप का कोचेस है, ये पहली बार अगरतला से शुरू हुआ है. पहले जितना तेजस था उसमें ओनली चेयर कार था. इसमें अभी फर्स्ट एसी है, सेकंड एसी है, थर्ड एसी है. ये फर्स्ट इन द रेलवे एंड ये जो रेक है ये भी हम लोग का इंडिजिनस है.
The maiden journey of Tejas Rajdhani Special train has transited from Agartala today, and you can see beside me that the train is going, and this is the first time that Tejas sleeper coaches are fitted into a train, and that too from Agartala railway station. With camera person Pinaro, this is Shudipta Kaur, DD News, Agartala.
And the historic affiliation of the Assam Regiment and Arunachal Scouts of the Indian Army with 106 Air Force Squadron was formally signed at a solemn ceremony at Tejpur yesterday. The affiliation of the regiment with the Su-30 Squadron of Eastern Air Command will assist them in development of mutual understanding of the joint ethos, capability, limitations and core competencies of other services through common understanding of military tactical doctrines and concepts in the contemporary conflict environment. The gathering was addressed by Major General P.S. Behel, in which he spoke about the importance of affiliation and its far-reaching impact in the present day. This enhanced synergy and understanding of each other's strengths will act as a force multiplier within our armed forces.
India continues to achieve new milestones in the fight against COVID pandemic. It has already delivered more than 8.5 million vaccine doses to frontline workers. Union Minister for Health and Family Welfare has termed the largest vaccine drive as the center staging of health and well-being in the Union budget visionary and revolutionary. He said that there has been consistent enhancement in health outlay during the past 6 years. More than 85 lakh beneficiaries have been vaccinated against COVID-19. More than 2.3 lakh beneficiaries were vaccinated till 6 p.m. on Monday. 73,557 healthcare workers received second dose of the vaccine on Monday.
Artificial glaciers have emerged as a ray of hope to solve the water crisis in Kulum village in Ladakh. We tell you more in this special report from our Leh correspondent.
As the nation is watching the unprecedented devastation in Uttarakhand in the northern frontiers of Himalayas, the drying villages are vacating their century-old native place. The reason for both extreme situation is the adverse effect of climate change in the Himalayan region. However, for the past few years, the winters are not as winter as required. Thus, the village facing acute shortage of water. With no option left with them, the villagers are leaving farming activities in their ancestral village. 7 families have already shifted to nearby village Upshi in search of labor jobs. Remaining 4 families in the village are looking at artificial glacier in the form of ice stupa, with a hope for the future of Kulum village. Ice stupas are constructed during the winters and are to solve the water crisis, especially during sowing season in spring. Innovator Rolex and Magsaysay awardee Sonam Wangchuk improvised the artificial glacier in the form of ice stupa across Ladakh and extended his support to the villagers to build 3 ice stupas above their village.
जैसा कि आपको मालूम होगा, जलवायु परिवर्तन के कारण लद्दाख जैसे पहाड़ों में जो ग्लेशियर्स हैं वो पिघलते जा रहे हैं। इस बारे में लद्दाख में कई सालों से कृत्रिम यानी कि मानव निर्मित ग्लेशियर्स बनाने का एक सिलसिला शुरू हुआ। गांव में एक पानी का समाधान देने के लिए सबसे पहले तो जो सर्दियों में पानी बहती है, जिसका कोई प्रयोग नहीं है, जो बहकर चली जाती है, उसे जमा कर हिमस्तूप यानी कि आइस स्तूपास बनाकर संजोए रखें, ताकि वो जब वसंत आए तो उस समय काम आ सके।
The villagers have high hope on these artificial glaciers and they are grateful to Sonam Wangchuk's Himalayan Institute of Alternatives, Ladakh. But the underlying point is climate change is here and its adverse effects are visible.
इस बार हम लोग ने आइस स्तूपा 3 बनाया। हम लोग का इधर खेती बनाने का टाइम वो पानी का बहुत कमी हो जाता है। इधर 6, 7, 8 घर वाले नीचे शिफ्ट हो गया सर।
अभी हमारा इधर आइस स्तूपा बना रहे सर। इधर इस साल हमने 3 बने सर। यहाँ से 2-3 किलोमीटर आगे 2 बने, इधर 1 बने सर। अगर इतना बड़ा नहीं हुआ इधर तो थोड़ा पानी कम है। कोमा में तो बिल्कुल पानी है नहीं सर, पीने के लिए मुश्किल हो रहा है, इसलिए अभी नीचे शिफ्ट हो गया, उधर उपशी में रह रहे हैं।
Indeed, artificial glaciers have emerged as a ray of hope to solve the water crisis in Kulum village of Ladakh. Ramesh Chandra's report from Leh for DD India.
Union Home Minister Amit Shah held a review meeting with officials of Union Home Ministry, Union Culture Ministry, as well as Union Information and Broadcasting Ministry on preparations for celebrations of 75th year of India's independence. The meeting also reviewed progress of work for celebrations marking 400th Prakash Purab of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji and 125th Jayanti of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose.
And the nation is also observing Basant Panchami today. It's a day of festivities and it's celebrated in different ways in different parts of the country. Basant, as we'd like to tell you, means spring, while Panchami refers to the 5th day of the lunar fortnight. On this day, students worship Goddess Saraswati, who is considered as the goddess of knowledge and wisdom. People wear yellow and decorate their homes with colorful flowers. In Varanasi, as well as in Haridwar, people were seen taking a holy dip in the Ganga on this auspicious occasion. This year, the Kumbh Mela is also taking place in Haridwar. So lots of color and festivities. Preeti, once again.
Indeed, yes, it marks the transition from the spine-chilling winter season we had to this beautiful spring season ahead. And let's hope this season and this transition also brings in joy and gaiety for all. Up next, let's turn focus to our next segment, that's Across the Globe, wherein we let you know all the international updates. The World Health Organization on Monday listed AstraZeneca and Oxford University's COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use. The listing by the UN Health Agency comes days after a WHO panel provided interim recommendations on the vaccine, saying 2 doses with an interval of around 8 to 12 weeks should be given to all adults and can be used in countries with a South African variant of COVID-19 as well.
WHO gave emergency use listing to 2 versions of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, giving the green light for these vaccines to be rolled out globally through COVAX. One of the vaccines is produced by SK Bio in the Republic of Korea, and the other is produced by the Serum Institute of India.
To get us more on that, our correspondent Abhishek Jha is joining us. Abhishek, the World Health Organization on Monday has listed AstraZeneca and Oxford University's COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use after having vaccinated on a record, on a record-breaking spree here in the country. We have the global stamp of the WHO coming in on our vaccine as well. Indeed, good news there to start the day with?
Of course, Preeti, and
So the WHO clearing the Oxford vaccine for emergency use. We're trying to connect with our reporter Abhishek, who has all the details about this major development. India involved as a part of this process because the Serum Institute will be manufacturing.
Yes, indeed. A while back, we told also our viewers about how the country has been achieving new milestones, and when we talk of the fight against COVID-19, more than 8.5 million vaccine doses have been given to frontline workers, and the pace at which the vaccination drive is being conducted in the country has been appreciated as compared to the vaccination drives in other countries. All right, our correspondent Abhishek Jha is joining us again. Abhishek, very quickly, let us know the factors which led to the WHO endorsing these 2 vaccines.
Okay, so Preeti, the 2 major things around the good part of this vaccine is the first, the logistical part. This vaccine, the temperature that is required to keep this vaccine safe is something around 8 degrees Celsius, which is good, especially in countries like India and various countries in Africa. The other vaccines, the variants that globally have been produced by other countries, they have a very low temperature needed to keep it preserved and safe. So logistically, this vaccine suits very well for globally. The other part is the scaled up capacity. The WHO has also said that currently to deal with the pandemic, we need 2 approaches for the vaccine. First is to give approvals to new vaccines, and the other is to enhance the capacity, to increase the capacity of manufacturing the vaccine. So India is providing both the kind of the scaled up capacity and the version of the vaccine which has been proven good with a 63% efficacy that this vaccine has claimed, and this has been proved of this AstraZeneca vaccine. So it seems that India, as our Prime Minister has also said, that India is actually going to do this humanitarian good across the globe with affordable prices and a facility that will keep this vaccine not only preserved and safe, but also accessible to all those population which has not been able to get vaccines so far.
Right, Abhishek, as far as India is concerned, it's a great honor. Already India, one of the leaders as far as vaccine production is concerned. Here too, we are proud as a country doing our bit. When we talk about emergency use, what about the fee structure? Is there likely to be a reduction in the cost? Because that is one of the demands that our government had made at one point of time.
So it looks like this approval that the WHO has given has been for this COVAX. That has been an umbrella organization that has been set up in order to have facility and facilitate all this vaccine reach to all those population globally which has not been able to produce vaccine by themselves, or they don't have ability or affordability to buy vaccine and get their population vaccinated. So that under that umbrella, now WHO is going to buy these vaccines from Serum Institute and the other version from the Korean manufacturers, and then these vaccines will be wherever this COVAX umbrella or the COVAX facility will be used. These vaccines will also be part of that whole process. So it's likely that other vaccines which are like produced by Chinese, Russians, or other countries, they are also at some stages of approval to be part of this COVAX initiative. But as of now, the Covishield that we are talking has become part of this process or this concept that COVAX was founded by so many other countries included. So it looks like now a larger part of the globe, a larger population of the globe will soon have the ability to get their population vaccinated. As far as pricing is concerned, it has not been declared either by the Serum Institute of India or WHO at what prices these vaccines are being bought by WHO or at what pricing WHO will be.
Right, Abhishek. Well, thank you very much for that detailed input, and you keep your eyes on that story. We'll be back with you throughout the day for more.
All right, let's get to more international news. 3 months after the Trump administration had rejected her, former Nigerian Finance Minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala received unanimous backing on Monday to become the first woman and the first African Director General of the World Trade Organization. A self-declared doer with a track record of taking on seemingly intractable problems, she will have her work cut for her at the trade body, who had threatened to pull the United States out of the organization, no longer in the White House. As the Director General, Okonjo-Iweala will need to broker international trade talks in the face of persistent US-China conflict, respond to pressure to reform trade rules and counter protectionism heightened by the COVID-19 pandemic. A 25-year-old veteran of the World Bank, where she oversaw an $81 billion portfolio, Okonjo-Iweala ran against 7 other candidates by espousing a belief in trade's ability to lift people out of poverty.
Austria's government on the 1st of March will decide on a potential loosening of pandemic restrictions that could come into effect around Easter at the earliest. Chancellor Sebastian Kurz on Monday said they are hopeful that the country will be able to more or less control the infection numbers, even though schools and shops are open again in Austria. Austria loosened its coronavirus lockdown last week, switching to a nighttime curfew from all-day restrictions on movement and letting non-essential shops and schools reopen. Only pupils who have been tested will be allowed to attend lessons, with others able to join online. Meanwhile, shops customers will have to wear FFP2 face masks. Such masks are already required in public transport and essential shops that are open. Museums, galleries and zoos will also be allowed to reopen.
Germany on Monday said that its decision to impose border controls with the Czech Republic and Austria is a temporary measure of last resort and defended a lockdown extension against business demands for a roadmap for reopening. The new restrictions along the normally open borders were prompted by alarm over outbreaks in the Czech Republic and Austria's Tyrol region of strains of the COVID-19 that spread faster and caused more illness. Germany installed frontier checks on Sunday, drawing protests from Austria and concerns about supply chain disruptions that could damage the country's export-oriented manufacturing sector. Austria has said the border controls are disproportionate and unacceptable. German police at the Czech and Austrian frontiers have been allowing in only truck drivers, German citizens and cross-border commuters in possession of the negative COVID-19 test certificates.
Britain says that the new hotel quarantine scheme is running smoothly after it was launched on Monday. New arrivals to the UK from a 33-strong red list of countries deemed to be at high coronavirus risk must now self-isolate for 10 days in a hotel room at a cost of £1,750. Hours after the rules kicked in, queues at Heathrow, Britain's biggest airport, were less than 1 hour long. While existing paying guests were still resident in some parts of the hotel, it is understood that it will soon become occupied solely by those having to self-isolate. Part of the £1,750 fee covers security costs to ensure guests adhere to the quarantine.
South African natural gas and helium producer Renergen will start production of its helium-powered ultra-cold mobile freezer in the next few days and has started discussions to sell the units to logistics companies. Companies and governments around the world are working on ways to establish cold chain storage and delivery systems for vaccines such as Pfizer and BioNTech shot, which must be shipped and stored at ultra-cold temperatures and can only last at standard fridge temperatures for up to 5 days. As a solution, Renergen launched the prototype cold chain storage called CryoVac, which has a temperature range of -150 degrees Celsius to 8 degrees Celsius and can store vaccines for periods of up to 30 days without the need for any power supply.
Colombian President Ivan Duque on Monday announced that Colombia's first 50,000 doses from Pfizer Inc. COVID-19 vaccines have arrived in the Andean country ahead of a possible early rollout of inoculations. The government had planned to administer the first dose on the 20th of February, but could begin vaccination several days earlier. The Colombian president further said that the goal is to vaccinate 1 million Colombians in the first 30 days. The country has the capacity to conduct up to 1 lakh vaccinations per day. Frontline healthcare workers will be the first to be vaccinated, followed by those over 80 years old.
Mexico on Monday began the massive task of vaccinating its millions of residents over 60 against COVID-19, with older Mexicans lining up by dozens and waiting for hours amid delays in applying the shot. Mexico began vaccinating healthcare workers in late December and is now beginning a second phase targeting the elderly, even while still waiting for more vaccine shipments. The government's plan is to inoculate all the adults over 60 who make up to 12% of the population and are among the most vulnerable to health complications from the virus by end of April.
And let's now take a look at updates on the COVID situation from across the world. The tally of COVID-19 cases worldwide has surpassed 10,96,70,473. The total recoveries stand at 8,42,05,089. The deadly virus has claimed over 24,18,000 lives globally. The US continues to remain the worst affected from COVID, where more than 2,83,17,000 cases have been registered. The country has reported over 4,98,000 deaths due to COVID-19.
The World Health Organization on Monday said an outbreak of Ebola in Democratic Republic of Congo and Guinea posed a regional risk that requires exceptional vigilance. Congo has confirmed 4 cases of Ebola since the resurgence of the virus was announced on February 7th in Butembo, the epicenter of the previous outbreak that was declared over last June. On the other hand, Guinea declared a new Ebola outbreak on Sunday with 7 confirmed cases and 3 deaths.
At least 3 rockets landed near Erbil International Airport in the semi-autonomous Kurdistan region of Iraq, killing 1 and injuring 5 people yesterday. A statement from the Kurdish Interior Ministry said a number of rockets were fired towards Erbil and its outskirts at night and some people were injured. It was not immediately clear if a US military base housing US troops near the airport was a target of the attack. Security officials said the Erbil airport was shut down and flights were halted for safety issues. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the attack.
Turkish police has detained 3 New Zealand nationals who were trying to illegally cross into Turkey from Syria. In a written statement, Turkey's defense ministry said one of the detained is a 26-year-old Islamic State suspect wanted by Interpol with a blue notice. The detained woman was currently under interrogation at a police station in the border province of Hatay and was expected to be deported to New Zealand with her 2 children following the legal process.
Large portions of the United States, from the Pacific Northwest through the Great Plains and into the mid-Atlantic states, have been in the grip of bone-chilling weather over the weekend. featuring snow, sleet and freezing rain. Monday brought heavy snow to the Midwestern U.S. with residents navigating through heavy winds, ice and bone-chilling temperatures. In Oklahoma City, a local church was providing essentials to the homeless who were braving frigid temperatures in tents. The National Weather Service said an Arctic air mass had spread southwards, well beyond areas accustomed to freezing weather, with winter storm warnings posted for most of the Gulf Coast region. Oklahoma and Missouri forecasts call for heavy snow and freezing rain to spread across a larger swathe of central and eastern sections of the country through Tuesday.
The heaviest snowfall to hit Greece in 12 years triggered power cuts, disrupted transport and trapped people in their homes on Monday. A cold front swept across the country on Saturday, driving temperatures down to minus 20 degrees Celsius in northern Greece and causing rare snowfall in Athens after a period of unreasonably warm weather. The head of the National Met Service said that the snowfall was the fiercest in terms of intensity and volume in 12 years. At least 6 people had to be rescued from the snow since Sunday. Authorities briefly closed off sections of the highway as graders moved in and appealed to the public to avoid non-essential travel. The Meteorological Service issued a severe warning on the weather on Monday as the cold front is forecast to persist until Wednesday.
And time now to take a look at all the news that's trending on the World Wide Web in our next segment, Web News Review.
All right, to get us the web review today, Amrit is joining us. Good morning, Amrit. Let us know what headlines have you picked up for us from social media sites.
Good morning, Preeti and Rukma. Apart from what you've put out this morning, what I've chosen is to lead with the Times of India. It says the LAC disengagement in India's favor. China will vacate the most prickly parts. Now, this is this is a source-based story of the Times of India, which says once concluded, the disengagement at the Pangong Tso will work for well for India, as it means vacation of the most prickly parts of the Chinese intrusion along the line of actual control that had defied resolution for a long time since May last year. And the paper quotes top government sources saying that concerns that India was giving up hard-won tactical gains of control on the heights along the south bank of the lake were misplaced, as the Chinese are now removing considerable infrastructure, including a helipad they had set up in the Finger area. So that's what the Times of India carries. The Mint carries the news. People above 50 may get COVID vaccine starting next month, says the Indian government. So that's good news for people above 50, upper healthcare workers, as the government had already said. The government will be giving priority to senior citizens, but now, according to the paper, people above 50 years of age may start getting the vaccine from next month. A story by the Money Control says entrepreneurs hail Narendra Modi government's move to free up mapping. Well, the Indian tech and startup ecosystem has hit the government's move on February 15th to liberalize mapping. It's likely to spur innovation and lead to next generation of mapping and unlock capital. Remember, the government had recently liberalized geospatial mapping within Indian territory. So the paper quotes various tech giants saying this would lead to innovation and would further liberalize the mapping ecosystem. After the space systems were liberalized, now the DST has liberalized the geospatial spatial mapping ecosystem. The Hindustan Times says Nancy Pelosi says independent commission will examine Capitol riot. Now, after Donald Trump's impeachment could not come through, the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the U.S., Nancy Pelosi, has said that there is bipartisan support for an independent September 11 style commission to to inquire into the deadly insurrection that took place at the U.S. Capitol Hill or the U.S. Parliament. So that's what's making it to the web portals and the newspapers this morning. It's back to you, Preeti and Rukma.
All right, thank you so much, Amrit, for joining us with those updates. That was Amrit letting us know about what all headlines have been put forth in various web portals or social media. And from here, we now change track and we get you all the updates from the world of sports in our segment, Sports Track.
All the sports news up ahead. And India have set a target of 482 runs against England in the second test being played in Chennai. In response, England had scored 53 for 3 by the end of the third day's play. England had a poor start. Sibley was dismissed for 3 runs. Rory Burns was dismissed by Ashwin for 25. At the same time, Jack Leach was out without opening an account. Early in the day, India scored 286 in their second innings. R. Ashwin scored the most, 106 runs for India. A 96-run partnership for the 7th wicket between Ashwin and Virat Kohli. Kohli also hit a brilliant half-century before he was LBW'd by Moeen Ali, scoring 62 runs. Mohammad Siraj and Ashwin added 49 in 55 balls for the last wicket. Ashwin was dismissed for 106 as the final wicket. Leach and Moeen Ali took 4 wickets each for England.
Number 3 seed Naomi Osaka is into the semi-finals of the Australian Open after a 6-2, 6-2 win over Si Soo Wee today. Osaka dominated the court with her speed and the winners with her power strokes as the veteran doubles star C struggled to find a way past the Japanese star. Also in the men's singles, Rafael Nadal defeated Fabio Fognini to cruise into the quarterfinals of the Australian Open with a 6-3, 6-4, 6-2 win, facing the man who dumped him from the 2015 US Open. Second seed Nadal showed him his top form.
And time now for our health segment in which we take a look at what our correspondent Kiran Bharadwaj has spoken to experts about as far as health tips and health benefits of various ways to maintain our health are concerned.
Yes.
Nutrition can be defined as food at work in the body. We need a variety of nutrients to be healthy. Different nutrients have different functions. Let's understand the importance of nutrients that are required by the body in greater amounts than others.
Nutrients can be divided mainly into 2 groups, macronutrients and micronutrients. What are macronutrients and why do we need them? Let's understand from nutritionist Nilanjana Singh. Nilanjana ji, what are macronutrients and how do they help us in staying healthy?
The macronutrients which are needed by our body in fairly large amounts and playing very important roles in well-being. The macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins and fats are known popularly for the energy providing and body building roles that they play. What is not common knowledge is that they play a part in supporting immunity and mental health, which is so relevant today. Water is another vital macronutrient for our body's functioning, and we can gauge the importance as 60% of our body weight is water.
What kind of diet provide us with the adequate amount of macronutrients?
A wide range of cereals go towards meeting our carbohydrate needs. Be it wheat, rice, bajra, jowar, ragi, it is good to include much variety, but at the same time avoid excessively refined version and its products. Protein sources that are available to us include meat, eggs, milk, yogurt, cheese, paneer, dals, beans, peas, soya. A major portion of our protein needs should ideally be met through plant sources. We are spoiled for choice as far as fats and oils go. There is mustard, soya, sesame, rice bran, peanut, ghee, butter and more. Although oils are an essential part of our diet, we should stay within the recommended limits. Maintaining hydration by drinking enough water and healthy beverages.
Include variety of foods in your diet to get macronutrients in good quantity. This will help you to attain and maintain good health. Kiran Bhardwaj, DD News.
Alright, so that was the health tip of the day, importance of macro and micronutrients in your diet to ensure you remain in good health and spirits. Up next, we get you the events which made this day special in history.
On 16th February 1927, the first rail service started between India and Nepal. On this day in 1931, Mahatma Gandhi held the first of his famous meetings with Lord Irwin. Having just been jailed for the Dandi March and Salt Satyagraha, Gandhi is famously said to have carried his own salt in a packet and used it to mix in his Nimbu Pani. In the year 1944, on 16th February, Dhundiraj Govind Phalke, popularly known as Dada Saheb Phalke, passed away in Nashik, Maharashtra. On 16th February 1959, Fidel Castro, the revolutionary leader of Cuba, became the youngest prime minister in the history of Cuba. On this very day, in 2005, Kyoto Treaty came into existence, 7 years after the agreement between many countries.
And up next, we take a look at weather and major temperatures across different cities of the country.
And well, the satellite picture shows.
Under the influence of a wind discontinuity in lower levels over central India, the southwestward movement and moisture incursion from Bay of Bengal, and because of this, light to moderate rainfall at a few places with isolated thunderstorms, lightning and hail is likely over Madhya Pradesh and Vidarbha and Chhattisgarh today and tomorrow. Also,
light to moderate rain also at a few places with isolated thunderstorms. Time now to take a look at temperatures recorded in major cities. Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of the Breakfast News. As we promised, it was a 1 hour packed with news stories, but don't go anywhere. Throughout the day, we'll be bringing you all the top stories, making headlines, keeping you updated on every event, every issue that comes in, especially at 10 a.m. today, when you can join us for News on the Hour.
Yes, and every day we leave you with beautiful images. Today, we will leave you with visuals which showcase love and care. Yes, undoubtedly, grandchildren are the most revered possessions of their grandparents, and these little souls serve as their hopes and a reflection of their own childhood. Before we go, we'll leave you with this duo of a grandfather and a grandchild in Estonia. The grandfather has created a computer-free experience for his grandchildren, that is an ice carousel on the Baltic Sea. Take a look at this, an ice carousel builder by profession. Ants Ellie took 4 to 5 hours together with his grandson to create it, and also then the wheel starts to turn, and both the grandson and the grandchild enjoy this every day. Take a look at this beautiful visual coming in from Estonia. Take your leave. Bye-bye.